Let's very briefly, before we head down, let's sort out just a couple quick things, some vocabulary. Vocabulary is really important in algebra. What does it mean? Take a second at your tables, and I want you to decide what the difference is. Be specific about these vocabulary words. If we say solve versus simplify versus evaluate. Okay. Take a second, see if we can get this figured out. We are finding an answer. More specifically, we're finding a value of a variable. Now, what's the point? What is the value of that variable going to do? For example, in this talk example, it says solve 3x minus 1 equals 11. We're finding a value of x, and what's the value of x going to do? What's it good for?
Balance the equation.
Okay, it balances the equation. That's kind of a chemistry way of saying it. A math way of saying it might be slightly different, but it's exactly the right idea. It's the value of x that makes the equation true, okay? Or in math, we'd say that satisfies the equation. It satisfies the equation, meaning it makes it work, okay? It's dissatisfied when it doesn't work, but it's perfectly satisfied when it works. So, and that's, you're going to do some stuff. The next assignment I'm going to put up today has to do with just some review. Solving simple stuff, solving linear equations and inequalities. Okay, and you can jump into that. So you're going to be finding values of x or y or whatever the variable is that satisfy the equation or the inequality, that make it true. Okay, in this case, just do this one in your head. What would x be? 4 would. Say when x is 4, that works. Okay? Now, what about simplify? Let's go to the middle table. What does it mean to simplify something? So solve was finding the value or values of variables that satisfy the equation or inequality. Okay? What does it mean to simplify?
You put all the stuff together.
Okay, good. We're going to simplify. It's exactly as advertised. When we're simplifying, we're going to rewrite something in the simplest possible way. Now we've got this. Now, what would I call, while we're on the subject of vocabulary, that's an equation, y. Yes, perfect. It has an equal sign. What do we call this right here?
Expression.
An expression. Good. An expression is something less than an equation. It's just, maybe it's part of an equation. I have an expression on the left side and an expression on the right side in this equation, but because there's no equal sign here, that's merely an expression. Not quite risen to the level of equation yet. So if I want to simplify this expression, all I'm going to do is combine like terms. No big deal. Okay, and then the third big question word. When you ask algebra questions, almost always they use one of these key vocabulary terms. What about evaluate? What's it mean to evaluate, ladies? It is. There's a hand. Yes.
To put x back into the equation.
Okay, good. You're going to put a number back into the equation. Now, here's how you remember this one. This is an easy one. Well, I'm going to give you here is the great trick for knowing what evaluate means. Value is a math word that simply means number. When we talk about the value of something, we're talking about its numerical value. The value of a variable, the value of a constant. That means a number, doesn't it? You want to know how big is it, how small is it, precisely. What is its number value? So when we evaluate, we're turning it into a number. We're taking this function, f of x equals 2x squared, and we want to know what is its number value when x is 2. Is there a way that we can, using our mathematical notation and vocabulary, can I take everything inside this blue box and rewrite that in a way that's much more simple and elegant mathematically? Part of the beauty of math is it takes lots of words and combines them into a very few symbols. How could I do that? How could I say how could I say f of x when f of x equals 2x squared when x equals 2? That's kind of an awkward way of saying it. There's too many words in there.
Plug in the x.
Perfect. I could rewrite that as f of 2, couldn't I?
Yeah.
Right? I'm really just finding f of 2. If I'm evaluating this when x is 2, I'm really just finding f of 2. Make sense?
Don't check for the 2 for the other x too.
Say it again. Yeah, I would. You're right. If I want to get the answers, if I want to get the answer here, I'm going to have to plug 2 in for the x in this function and find out what it is. This is a function, right? I kind of threw that word out there. How would you recognize that this is a function? What about that just screams function?
The x.
F of x, right? F of x is our notation for function, isn't it? And f of x, we've always said, is just a fancy word for y. Yeah. So, and you know, we'll do some more with this, obviously, a lot more with this. F of x is just a fancy way of saying y, but it's our functional notation. It's our kind of our specific way of saying it that says x is my independent variable, and the y that it's generating, aka f of x, is the dependent variable, right? So we're going to feed values of x into the function, and it's going to use this formula to produce values of the function, values of y, if you want to call it that. So to find this, all we would do is just that, right? And that's just simply order of operations. What's order of operations tell us? PEMDAS. PEMDAS works, but I actually, there's something about PEMDAS that I don't like.
You don't like the parentheses part?
No, parentheses are great. I love parentheses. But there's something about PEMDAS. When you say the word PEMDAS, we all know P is for, E is for, M is for, D is for, A is for, and S is for. Okay, that seems to imply, though, doesn't it, as we're going in order, it implies correctly that parentheses come before exponents. That's right, isn't it? It implies that exponents come before multiplication, which is perfectly correct. It also implies that multiplication comes before division. Is that correct? No, they're on equal footing. Multiplication and division, we're going to look for all cases of multiplication and or division at the same time, from left to right. They're on equal footing, as are addition and subtraction. And so although PEMDAS, you know, it's not worthless, for that reason I'm not a huge fan. When we write down order of operations, those of you who have had me, I mean, it's been geometry, so it wouldn't have, you guys would have been geometry and it wouldn't have done too much of this, but you probably remember me, hopefully, writing it that way. Okay? And so it's that's a better way to think of it, as an order of operations tree. And so when we're simplifying stuff, this is, you can do, believe it or not, most of Algebra 2 is accomplished by using that little order of operations tree. If you remember two things about it, it really covers very much of what we do in here. If we want to simplify, we're just going to go in the normal direction for order of operations. Top to bottom is simplify. Okay, so first we're going to do parentheses, then exponents, etc., etc. Now, when we start to get into isolating or solving, if we're solving for a variable, which algebraically we're going to discuss is the same thing as isolating a variable, and you are probably familiar with that idea, then we just reverse it and go that way, right? So isolate or solve turns it around and goes that way. Okay, so something like, I think we had 2 times 2 squared. Well, what do we do first? Exponents, sure. So 2 squared is times 2. 8. Okay, well what is, how about this? What's that? That's 9, isn't it? Right? Makes sense. Because when I take, if I look at the power, -3 squared, -3 is my base, 2 is my exponent, right? Isn't that just saying -3 times itself 2 times, right? Okay, now what's this? So that is 9. What's that?
-9.
Oh, that's -9. Why? How is that different than that?
Because the parentheses includes the.
Ah, okay, good, because if we strictly use order of, I'm going to restate that, you're exactly right. If we strictly use order of operations here, what this is telling us to do, we're gonna do exponents first and then multiplication. This is not saying -3 times -3, it's saying negative the quantity, 3 squared. And 3 squared is just 3 times 3. So what this really means is that, okay? When you see a negative sign in front of something, all you're really doing is multiplying by -1. Yeah, that's it. So before I can multiply by -1 to get my answer, I have to exponentiate that 3 squared. Okay? Make sense? All right. There are a bunch of, there may be some issues, and I'm gonna leave this up to you guys. There may be some issues, some questions that have to do with the properties of multiplication and addition, but you can work that out amongst yourselves. It's in section 1.1, I think. There's a little table. You know, I'll be in the lab kind of available to answer questions. If you have, rather than get a million questions like last period of, I think I got this right, you did. If it was an evaluate one and it marked it wrong on, I think it was problems like 18, 19, 20. I think those were the ones that kept marking wrong. And then I think there was another one where if it threw in a decimal and asked you to write an exact answer, it wasn't supposed to be, so that one also, it's not your fault, it's Moodle screwed up. So just, those will get fixed. If you're done, you can submit those and I'll give you credit for those. I'll have it regrade them and give you credit for them. I will put the solving linear equations and inequalities assignment up. It's all essentially ready to go. I have to just make a couple tweaks and it's ready to roll. Yep.
For the thing, it says right now I finished it last night. It says it's at 75.
Yeah, okay,
Once
now
you put it as due, it's gonna go up to 100.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's so. Those of you who have kind of had Moodle before, you'll know that's when that on-time credit gets added. Then it'll add an additional 25% to that.
Yeah, I was just making sure it's the same.
That's it. That's all it is. I won't ever guarantee that I'll add that until the day that it's due, but sometimes if I have time, I'll go in every day and just kind of, even before the due date, and add those in. So, but you will, promise you'll get credit for it. Yeah. Okay, 205.
So,
Yeah.
how long will it be